sippy sippy soy. Let's go. I cry a lot during movies and TV shows. Perhaps years of emotional repression has left a deep well of sadness within me that if even is slightly tapped into will come bursting out of my eyeballs full blast. Sometimes it's easier for us to allow ourselves to cry for the sake of others on a screen than it is for ourselves in real life. But sometimes I'll be watching something really happy and I'm still crying. What's up with that? Why are the floodgates open? The well shouldn't be tapped into right now. And it's rare and beautiful, and I think it's difficult to achieve. Enter Bocchi the Rock. Bocchi the Rock? I'm gonna say Bocchi. That sounds satisfying to say. I've watched the show. I should know. I should know the name of the characters by now. Bocchi is a high school student with a deep passion for guitar. Her dream to one day play in a post-punk, hardcore, mathcore, rock, dad rock, stoner rock. The show follows a slice of life format with a focus on Bocchi trying to pursue her calling while meeting a colorful cast of zany characters along the way. Bocchi faces many obstacles on her journey to become a rock star, such as making eye contact with people, going outside, showering. Yes, Bocchi's greatest obstacle is herself, as she suffers with debilitating social anxiety. And it's not in a cute way either. It's kind of painful to look at sometimes. She's just like me. She's just like me. She's my child. She's just like me. This was one of those shows where I instantly started taking notes, like I knew I was going to want to talk about it in some capacity. Initially, I thought I was going to resonate with the idea of an introverted musician pursuing their career. What really connected with me was Bocchi's emotional state and development. Both of which I'd like to take the next 16 minutes to dissect and give comment on, and maybe we'll find out why I cried so much during the show. Spoilers, it's because she's just like me. Part 1, Diagnosing Bocchi. I'm gonna begin the way any good therapist would begin, by asking the age-old question,
what the fuck is wrong with you?
The way I see it, Bocchi regularly demonstrates 3 areas of concern. Bocchi has low self-worth. Bocchi often compares herself to others and feels inferior because they're more in life than she is. Bocchi overhears some classmates talking about bands she's interested in and she tries to engage with them but fumbles immediately. Bocchi runs away and hides at the bottom of a stairwell and thinks to herself it was probably for the best that she didn't say anything because if she did, they would have told her off for eavesdropping and being generally creepy. Bocchi anticipates others to be rude and to look down on her. But this anticipation is almost never rooted in any external observation and more has to do with her internal sense of self. The classmates showed no sign of hostility. In fact, they showed an interest in engaging with Bocchi because they've never heard her speak with any other classmates before. But Bocchi believes herself to be creepy and a socially inept person who deserves to be treated negatively and can expect others to do so. Bocchi has an uncontrolled, anxious mind. There's something powerful within Bocchi that anticipates negative outcomes, urging Bocchi to avoid certain actions to avoid experiencing negative emotions, often to the detriment of her greater ambitions. Bocchi's thoughts are in conflict with her goals. Bocchi wants to go into the performance venue, but anticipates being judged, so she avoids entering. Bocchi wants to support the band by getting a job, but she anticipates messing up at work and embarrassing herself, so she avoids agreeing. Bocchi wants to help find a singer for their band, but she anticipates rejection, so she avoids asking people. You ever see a pattern here? This happens constantly, and it's the most fucking painful thing I've ever seen, but only because it's so relatable. Bocchi lacks social skills. Anytime Bocchi has to interact with a stranger, her brain malfunctions. She struggles to think properly. Her communication is ruined. She can't make eye contact. Her motor functions are inhibited. Now, what's so insidious about these 3 particular issues is that they all coincide and play into one another. Bocchi beats herself up for having poor social skills. Beating herself up contributes to her negative self-worth. Having a low self-worth contributes to Bocchi expecting others to look down on her. The more Bocchi expects this, the less likely she is to interact with anyone to avoid that. The more she avoids interacting with others, the less opportunity she gets to develop her social skills. It's an infinite loop, because the mind. Now I bet some of you are thinking, boy, that sure does sound an awful lot like me. And if you're not thinking that, get the fuck out. Go climb a mountain or whatever you reptilian fucks do. I'm sorry, I don't mean that. That's coming from an emotional place. I find myself relating to Bocchi's situation, painfully so. And when I ask myself, why? Why do some people get to have healthy and productive lives while I get to have a panic attack at the grocery store? Part 2, the origin of Bocchi's social anxiety. Now, I'm not some kind of brainiac psychologist, so my knowledge is limited to my own experiences in therapy and watching Dr. K videos, but there seems to be a strongly agreed upon sentiment in psychology. When looking for the origin of certain negative behavioral patterns or cognitive temperaments, the money's often in childhood. The logic is that as a child, our brain is still growing, leaving room for negative emotions to stick with us and negatively affect us years after they've happened. It's also just true that with more lived experiences comes better emotional processing. The more experience you have processing negative emotions, the better you're going to be at them. So when you're a kid, you're obviously not going to deal with them as well as you do when you're an adult, just through an experiential basis. Does that make sense? You're more likely to process things more effectively. Going by what we know about Bocchi's childhood in the show, the problem seems to be that Bocchi never learned how to socialize with others. We're shown in flashbacks that Bocchi was never able to interact with any of the other children in her class, eating lunch with a teacher instead of her classmates. You wanna know a fucked up thing about that? That teacher who was showing emotional compassion and empathy towards a lonely child by offering her lunch when she's alone may have been hindering her social development. Bocchi's plan to start a band is her bringing her guitar to school and waiting for someone to speak with her. This strategy may seem naive, but from Bocchi's perspective, it's all she knows how to do. Bocchi never had to be proactive in speaking to people. She learned that eventually someone would come to her. The teacher's actions came from solely positive intentions, yet may have negative, unforeseen long-term consequences. I wince at the ramifications of this in my life. I'm never having children. So we've identified the problem. We've identified the origin of the problem. The next question is, what does Bocchi do about it? And if you relate to Bocchi, what can I do about it? Part 3, go to therapy.
I'm gay, so you're gonna have to talk about this in therapy later.
Look up a therapist near you, get their reception number, call them, book an appointment, you're welcome. That's the life hack glitchless speedrun version of it. Don't be like Bocchi. Her plan was to wait for someone to approach her, which they did because she's an anime protagonist. You are not. Bocchi is written to be incredibly lucky because she's surrounded by incredibly positive and emotionally supportive people who want to see Bocchi grow. Not all of us have that luxury. With that being said, part 4, the importance of Bocchi's pain. I say this with nothing but love in my heart for Bocchi. But she's an incredibly damaged and unhinged human being. It's a miracle Bocchi hasn't committed any crimes yet. Bocchi just uploads Black Country New Road covers on YouTube, and she's content with just that. When I was Bocchi's age, I used to look for people to argue with online, for no reason, like by choice. And nothing's changed. I blame destiny.
What did you do?
I changed my language to Korean.
Oh no.
It's clear that years of emotional isolation and self-sabotage has taken an incredible emotional toll on Bocchi's psyche. Every time we see her struggle to do something normal, that's a reminder of that fact, and it's devastating every time. Because she wants nothing more than to be normal, but she just can't do it. I will not cry on prom. But in the same breath, I think Bocchi's pain is a big source of her strength. She's lived in anguish and isolation for so long, she's become desperate. And that desperation fuels the flame that resists giving into old habits. She puts herself into compromising positions, uncomfortable situations, and embarrasses herself. Yet she persists because her pain has taught her. She'd rather be uncomfortable and growing than comfortable and miserable. After Bocchi practices with her band for the first time, she falls into deep despair when she gets negative feedback that despite being a good guitarist, she's not good performing with a whole band. So she decides to give up on her hopes and dreams on the spot. It's over. Full credits. Full credits. Years spent honing her abilities, practicing every day to develop confidence in those abilities in order to play live, only to find out that it's a completely different ball game playing in a band versus practicing by yourself in a dark closet. But after some kind words from her bandmate, she realizes that the position she's in is everything she's been hoping for. And she tells herself, it's the kind of miracle most people never experience. And I can't let it go to waste. Bocchi has been praying for this opportunity, and it's finally come, something she was really losing hope would even happen. It's only after years of experiencing that pain, all those failed attempts, can she fully appreciate the position that she's in. And it's that gratitude that pulls her out of her despair. Pain is strength. Dive deep within your own personal hell and use those flames to guide your path back up to heaven. Bocchi knows what she has to do. She recognizes that this opportunity could change the trajectory of her life, and that it is imperative that this opportunity cannot go to waste. But just because you know what you logically have to do doesn't make it emotionally easy to. Uh-oh, Bocchi still feels uncomfortable performing in front of a crowd, even acknowledging all of this. She's just like me. Why is it so hard to do things that we know we should do? I know I should eat healthier. I know I should stop watching Jordan Peterson clips on YouTube. I know they're just gonna make me angry. I get angry every time. But sometimes knowing the correct course of action is sometimes not enough to follow through with it. And it's super easy to beat yourself up for not doing what you know you should logically do. What kind of undisciplined, self-indulgent waste of space knows what they need to do but can't follow through with it? What an absolute failure. Part 5, failure is good actually. When you're a baby learning to walk, you're expected to fail. Everyone understands that failure is literally part of the process when you're learning to walk. We don't tell the baby off when it falls down. What a dumb baby, can't even walk good. What an idiot dumb baby. No, we don't dwell on it. We encourage it to keep going. But it feels like somewhere along the line we've learned that failure or success is something that you are rather than something that happens to you. If you go on dates and they don't work out, you are bad at dating. If you study for a test and fail, you are bad at studying. If you take a personality test and fail, It's built into our language. If you fail at something, you are bad at it. You are bad. I think it becomes a matter of identity. I am someone who is bad at X. And it's amazing how much of an effect identity has on motivating our actions. So I draw a lot, and people will often compliment me by saying, "Wow, I really like your drawing." And I'll say, "Thank you." And then I'll ask if they draw too. To which they'll respond, "No, I'm not good at drawing." As if the reason they don't draw is because they believe themselves to be bad at it. Isn't that kind of interesting? It's like whether they draw or not is hinged on their identity. I am bad at X, so I do not do X. But why not? When I speak to these people, it's not even that they don't like drawing. They like the idea of drawing, and even express the desire to be able to draw, but only if they could draw well. When they do draw, they're not satisfied at their end result. But what is it within us that makes us think that we have to be good at something or it's not worth doing? Why is being bad at something make it demotivating to do that thing? When the baby is learning to walk and fails a bunch, we don't say, "This baby's bad at walking. Time to pack it up, baby. No more walking for you, dumb baby. Stupid dumb baby." No, we don't make that value judgment on the baby. The baby is neither good nor bad. It is just a baby. A baby who's learning to walk. A baby who fails sometimes and sometimes doesn't. I think that it has to do with the ego trying to protect itself. Our ego really wants us to feel like we're competent and valuable people. And when you take an action and its outcome is displeasing to you, it's easy for the ego to throw its hands up and say, "I'm bad at this and I don't like being bad at things, so I'm going to avoid doing things that I'm bad at because it feels bad." Wah. And the weird thing about this is when I'm drawing, I'm not thinking to myself, "Man, I'm really good at drawing," or "Man, I'm really bad at drawing." I'm just drawing. I'm really not thinking much at all. Now I'm drawing well. Now I'm drawing bad. I am just drawing. I'm only focused on the action, and I'm not applying any value judgment to that action. The action itself isn't good or bad. It's only the final product that me and others will look at and then use our aesthetic sensibilities to decide whether we like it or not, whether this is good or bad, whether I'm happy with what I've done or not happy with what I've done. And what's most paradoxical about people not wanting to draw but also wanting to draw? The only way a bad drawer can become a good drawer is by drawing more. Drawing. But they won't draw more because they're bad at drawing. You see this cycle? But when you're trying to learn something new, trying to cultivate change within yourself,
sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something.
Failure is an expected part of the process, and by depriving yourself of failure, you're also depriving yourself of success. Whether the outcome of your action is good or bad, what's important is that you did something. And the more you do something, the more likely you are to run into desirable outcomes. You should just focus on starting. Bocchi starts in a cardboard box. And I could not be more proud. Part 6, Bocchi's secret weapon. Have you ever tried to think your way out of being anxious? It's not very effective. Anxiety is a condition that affects your thoughts. You can't solve a problem with your mind because the problem is your mind. There are many situations where Bocchi knows what she needs to do, but her mind is working against her. So the question becomes, what do we appeal to for a solution when we cannot appeal to ourselves? And the answer is really obvious, but it's hard to acknowledge something obvious when it's really obvious. I'm a slumpy plant and I need carbonated water. If we can't appeal to ourselves, we appeal to someone else. But we use our minds to problem solve all the time. So it's really easy to diagnose yourself as the problem and then tell yourself the solution is just that you have to be better. I am bad at X, so I must become better in order to be good at X. But it's like if your whole life you've been falling over because you have this broken leg and you've never gone to a doctor or seeked outside help, and you just tell yourself, the problem is me, I just need to be better and stop falling over so much. At some point, it's negligence at best and abusive at worst. Bocchi's outside help comes in the form of a support network. Bocchi's newfound friends and bandmates are incredibly emotionally supportive people who recognizes Bocchi needs help and are eager to help her. Sometimes it's even just their attitudes that rub off on Bocchi and positively affect her on days where she would have otherwise just reverted into old negative habits. I wrote in my notes that a lot of the show feels like exposure therapy for Bocchi. Her friends encourage her throughout the show to step outside of her comfort zone constantly, and Bocchi suffers through it all. But every time Bocchi recognizes how all those uncomfortable moments serve her, I fucking tear up. Because what's so debilitating about social anxiety is that it takes away your ability to reach out for help from others. A lot of the time for me, it comes down to not wanting to burden others with my emotional issues. I feel as though I am a burden and that I don't deserve the help of others. A really good example of this in the show comes from the singer when she says that she feels like she doesn't deserve to be in the band because she feels guilt for lying about her abilities and then flaking. Bocchi eventually speaks up and tells her that Everyone's forgiven her and actually wants her in the band, and is willing to even teach her guitar. Internally, she hasn't forgiven herself. She feels like she doesn't deserve forgiveness or kindness from others. So when others do give that for her, something she can't give herself or feels like she doesn't deserve to give herself, it's a really powerful moment. Within this support network, all the girls support and rely on each other as their needs dictate, and that's something Bocchi really desperately needs. And it's these moments of recognition that tap into my well and make me cry harder than Angel Beats ever could. Part 7, conclusion. To answer my own question, what made me cry so much about Bocchi had a lot to do with how much I saw myself in her. It's easy to watch Marmaduke and cry when the dog gets cancer or whatever. I don't know, I haven't seen Marmaduke. Does that happen? But I've been through so many of the experiences, thoughts, and feelings that Bocchi goes through in the show. I've been Bocchi. And to a large extent, I still am Bocchi. And just like Bocchi, I'm hopeful about the direction my life is heading for the same reason she is. Crying for Bocchi is like giving myself permission to cry for me, for what I've been through, for what I'm struggling with, and what I've overcome. Looking back on Bocchi's progress and saying, well done, Bocchi, I'm proud of you, is really saying, well done, I'm proud of you to myself. In conclusion, she's just like me, end video.